If you've been in Cleveland in the past 70 years, you probably know this next gentleman. He was my high school teacher, English, and he has embarked in a new era of his life in writing fiction books. It's going to be a great discussion, and I'm really looking forward to it. So Ken, did you say you graduated in '64?
Correct, yep. 64.
At the old Bradley? Was it old Bradley at the time?
Oh, yeah. We were there. That was the year Bob Johnson, that group.
Bob Johnson.
Jimmy
Yep.
Logan, Sally Standifer, yeah.
My mother, I
And
guess, Juanita Owenby.
Yeah, Juanita Owenby was in that class, yes.
Does it seem like yesterday, or does it seem like a long time ago?
It seems pretty much like yesterday. I don't know where you ran into this as you're growing up or not, but when I was young, I used to hear older people tell me that as you get older, time goes faster. And I didn't think they knew what they were talking about, but boy, it does. As you get older, it just seems to pass quicker and quicker.
Is there a way to slow it down? Is staying busy make it go faster, or staying busy make it go slower? Which is it?
I think if you just sit and wait on things, that your time goes quicker and you run out of time. I think you need to stay as active as you can, as long as you can.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
I heard a saying this morning, I can't remember what it was. It said, the moving finger writes. I think what it meant was that somebody that's trying does more than somebody that doesn't. In other words, the moving finger writes, the still finger doesn't write.
Right. If you get still, you don't accomplish much.
You don't accomplish much.
Right. Yeah.
So when you graduated, were you going to be into? You graduated as in English, or was it? Let's see. What was you graduated in?
Okay, I went to Lee and graduated with a degree in English, teaching degree, and got my teaching degree and began teaching. Then I got a master's at Middle Tennessee, the Blue Raider country there, and health, PE, health, safety, recreation. And then I got a doctorate at UTK in education with an emphasis in educational technology.
What does a doctorate mean?
It's just another ceiling that you go through in education. It's I guess a terminal degree in the fact that you've gone pretty much as far as you can. Now you can get other doctorates, or you can go back and get masters, but a doctorate's considered the highest degree, I guess, that you can get.
I've always wondered, what does a PhD mean?
Doctor of Philosophy.
So it's not, well?
There's different types of doctors, okay? PhD, or you can get a medical degree. Mine obviously was in education. It's an EDD, Doctor of Education.
So you can't get a PhD in education?
It would be an EDD.
Oh, I see.
In education, yeah.
So did you? I noticed where did you coach under Steve Williams?
I was his assistant there.
Which Steve Williams was that? The chiropractor?
Yeah, the little
Oh,
bitty
yeah,
great
yeah.
athlete.
My chiropractor.
I guess so.
Yeah,
He's out of business now.
Yeah,
But,
just like in the last 6 or 8 months.
yeah,
I go to his brother Steve now.
you go to Mark.
Mark, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I
yeah.
always got their names mixed up.
Yeah.
I don't know why that was.
Steve is the main one, according to Mark, I guess.
I don't know. Steve was always more mellow to me, I thought. But boy, they were both great guys.
Yeah,
weren't
they were. The whole family of Williams is there. Terry, their sister.
I heard the story of Steve on the football team. He was going against a huge, I guess, running back or something, and they came back and both of them just tucked their heads under and hit like that, and the big guy just fell, and Steve was still standing there.
I don't doubt that. He was a great athlete.
Was he just agile?
He was agile and confident and mean, and mean on the court or on the field. But
They could golf.
He
They
wouldn't-
could play ball, baseball, basketball, football.
yeah, but he didn't back down from anybody. I've heard some tales from him, but I probably wouldn't share them on air here. But he was I guess he was Carson Newman, is a really good athlete there when he was played basketball.
You know, you're sort of as much known for being in athletics almost as much as you are a teacher.
Well, I played basketball at Lee when I went there. Was a point guard on that team. We had a great team there with Dizzy Ford and Crab Walston, Ken Walston, Boog Sherlin played
Steve
with us.
Sloan, was he in that group?
Sloan was not. Sloan was. He didn't go to Lee, but now Sloan at Bradley when we were there. Sloan was a senior when I was a sophomore, but at Lee then we won. I guess my senior year, we won the first national championship that had ever been earned from anybody from Bradley County. I think we won a National Christian College championship my senior year, and 2 years we were known as a running team. 2 years for 2 years we averaged over 100 points a game. Had David Montgomery there, played with us. David's best shooter I've ever seen, ever played with. He could fill it up. If he had, and that was before the 3-point shots. If we'd had 3-point shots back then, there's no telling what he would have averaged. But he could fill it up. Yeah.
Were athletes as good then as they are now?
It depends on who you ask. People now don't think they were. Now you've got the benefit of probably better facilities and weight training and all those kinds of things that weren't as available back when we were there. And I say that because I remember in high school, junior high school, Bob Johnson worked out almost every day at the Y, and of course you know what he became at UT, and then was a first draft choice I think for Cincinnati, and played in pros for several years. But he would come in. I worked at the Y some at that time, and he would come in and work out almost daily, while everybody else his age was out partying, running around, playing, and all that. But Bob was dedicated, and it paid off for him. You know.
Why were you in sports so much? You just enjoyed the
I
camaraderie, or what?
I grew up in the old field, if you know where the old field is, over around
Troy
Black
Dixon
Avenue.
grew up over there, didn't he?
Who?
Troy Dixon. Did you ever know Troy?
Yeah, I think so. Grew up over there. Family didn't have a whole lot of money. Sports was a way that I could participate and feel like I kind of belonged, I guess. So at an early age, I started playing, baseball, basketball, whatever. But
Did you go to Arnold, I guess, if you were in the old
I
field?
I was in the first class at Arnold when I went to Blythe Avenue as in elementary school, and then our 8th grade year, we transitioned over. Arnold opened up and went to Arnold at that time. It became a junior high. And
Is that right? Arnold School was a junior high at
Yeah.
one time.
yeah, 7, 8, and 9, and then I finished up in ninth grade there, and then went to Bradley, and then I went to Lee. Then began to.
Did you play sports at Lee?
Yeah, I played basketball there. That's where we won the national championship there. Played basketball. That's the only sport we had. Technically, although one year we, remember my junior or senior year, Coach Hughes, Dale Hughes, decided we were going to play baseball, and we got a baseball team up, and it wasn't sanctioned by the president of the school and so forth, but we played a doubleheader against, I guess it was Bryan, and we split with them a doubleheader same day, and the write-up got in the paper, and the hierarchy at Lee saw that and called Dale in and said, your baseball season's over. That was before they really wanted to get big into sports like they are now. But technically, I played on the first baseball team at Lee, too.
So Dale Hughes was a coach then?
Yeah, Dale was a coach. Bradley, he coached at, before he went to Bradley as principal, he coached there at Lee in basketball, and then, like I said, that one day of baseball.
Did you think when I get out of high school or college, I'm going to go teach at Bradley High School? Was that your goal, or did it just sort of end up that way?
It ended up that way. When I got out, I had a secondary degree, of which I could teach anything from 7 through 12 at that time. And so I started at Hopewell and coached there, taught in 7th and 8th grades at that time. And originally coached the boys basketball, but then, and Don Farmer coached the girls, but then he left the coaching ranks, and I began coaching the girls also. In fact, Data Caldwell I coached. I think she still holds a record at Bradley High School for the number of points that was scored.
So you were her first coach?
I was her first coach, yeah. And she was a little interesting story about Data. I coached her cousin Donna played with me, and she was 1 or 2 years ahead of Data. And she told me about Data and said, you need to get her out here. She was a pretty good sized girl, 5'10" or so in the 6th grade, and just a lanky old farm girl, basically. And when I say old farm girl, I don't mean anything negative. That's a positive,
Yeah.
But I went to her and said, Data, how about coming out for basketball, And she said, I can't. And then I said, why not? She said, I've got piano on Wednesdays, and I can't miss that. So I tried to talk her into it, and she wouldn't budge, and talked to Donna some more. And I went back to her, and I said, I'll tell you what we'll do. I said, you come out for basketball, and you don't have to come Wednesday. You go do your piano. And we finally agreed that she would do that, and she became a great basketball player, even in 7th and 8th grade out there. And then, like I said,
Still holds the record after all these years.
Yeah.
Did you go to school with my dad? He would have been about your age. Bob Burris?
I did. Probably wasn't around him a lot, but I remember him.
It was a big school, I guess, at that time even, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember how many. We had 300 or 400 people graduating at that time at Bradley, yeah. And at that time, and that was probably just 10 through 12 because Arnold had opened up. And I don't remember whether they had a 9th grade still at Bradley or not because Arnold would have been a city school. But I guess they had a 9th grade at Bradley. But I went to Arnold. I was being in the old field. I was a city boy, I guess. But we had I can't call the number now, but it was pretty big.
Do you ever go down through the old field now and remember?
Every once in a while, I'll drive through there.
Is it sad or is it?
Of course, a lot of places are not there anymore. but I can still
What would you
recognize.
consider is the old field?
Probably, and I don't know whether this is technically correct by people that do the maps and those kind of things, but I would think from 9th Street there up through and past Blythe Avenue School and in that area there.
Hardwick Street,
Yeah,
guess.
Hardwick Street,
Chippewa.
Chippewa, 9th Street. Golly, I don't even remember some of those now, but
Why'd they call it the old field? I've heard that term my whole life.
you know what? I don't know, but that's what I've always heard that called.
I've heard it called that forever.
Whether it was one of the first areas in Cleveland, I don't really know.
I think Troy told me that it was some houses that one of the manufacturing plants built houses on King Edward, and they
Okay.
called it 10 row because there were houses 10 in a row,
Okay.
and it was an old field that they built the houses on. And I think that's where
That
it gets
could
the
be
terms.
that could very well. That sounds logical. Yeah, I know that some of those big companies used to build housing
Yeah.
for their employees. Yeah,
Did you ever walk from there to school
about
did you go-
every day.
every day? So you
I
walk.
used well, I didn't of a morning, but in the afternoon, I guess my mom would take me of a morning most of the time when I was going to Arnold, and then even Bradley. But I would have a ride in the morning, and she would go to work. And she worked at the old Duplan corporation there that threaded, used cones to thread, you know, and so forth. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of money. I remember when she got above 10 cents an hour, you know, working there. But I would have a ride in the morning. Then afternoon, I was always practicing something. So every afternoon, basically, I'd walk home then from either Arnold or.
From Bradley High, where it was at the time, that would have been a good 40-minute walk, I guess.
It
wouldn't
probably was. There were 3 or 4 of us, I guess, that had a daily walk there from that area to over that way. But that was. I could tell you it was all uphill and full of snow, but
Did you have a lot of homework back in those days? I mean, did you have to get home from practice and then do homework, or was it just?
I had some, depending on the classes.
But it wasn't like when I went to high school. When I went to Cleveland, they gave you so much homework, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
Just no point.
Back then we had a study hall, and if we didn't want to just goof off in study
Yeah.
hall, I could get a lot of that stuff done during study hall. So
Were you big in education? Is that why you wanted to be in education?
no, not really. I always made decent grades, but I never excelled. I didn't put that much emphasis on it, and nobody in my family had ever gone past the 6th grade, I guess, at that time, and so I really didn't understand that. You know, there was better things if you made straight A's and all that kind of stuff. But I made decent grades, and I don't know that I've ever failed a class. But I didn't intend to go into education at that time. But when I got a chance to go to Lee and then play basketball, then that's kind of where things led me then to get into education. And I did it partly because I wanted to do some coaching too. I still was involved in athletics a lot.
The teaching, did you always teach English pretty much at Bradley?
I did, even though I had a master's in PE and was coaching. They didn't have a lot of male teachers in English department, and I was certified, so I really didn't have much of a chance to teach PE, and I don't know that I would have chosen to do that anyway, because I enjoyed the English. I guess I was an anomaly there that did some coaching and teaching in that kind of a department also.
Is English, do you think of English classes more of prepositional phrases, or do you think of it more as speeches and writing?
We did the grammar, but that was kind of a necessary evil, I guess, at that time. But my English teaching at Bradley, the classes I enjoyed the most, we had some electives for a few years there, like science fiction and whodunit and mystery stories
I had
and all
whodunit.
that. Yeah, and I enjoyed those more than I did teaching the grammar and that. And basically, that's because you can make it more interesting, and kids enjoyed it better. Yeah.
Your class was very calm. I don't know what about it, but it was just calm. I mean, it's just calm. I always remember that. It was the calmest class I ever had. It was just, I don't know, it was just calm. Just didn't dread it.
Because everybody was sleeping in there. No.
No, I think it was just a calm environment, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Did you try to do that, or is that just your demeanor?
That probably my demeanor, and the kids I had, they were, and I'm gonna say y'all, but y'all were good kids and didn't really want to cause a problem.
Nobody,
and I think y'all came in, whether you respected me or not, you acted like you did, and I think it went both ways, and I think it was just a good combination there of having good kids and trying to make the classes halfway interesting for you, and we did a lot. I don't remember in your class or not, but we did a lot of group work too.
Yep.
Where I let kids work together and devise some projects and those kind of things. I didn't just sit and talk all period and say you take notes and all that. I never did think we got much out of that. I didn't when I was a student, and I didn't feel like you would as when I was a teacher then.
Do you think people has missed the English language? Now, I'll hear people, and I even hear myself pronouncing stuff wrong, and I know it's the wrong way, but I do it anyway, but I know the right way, and I don't know if people now know the right way.
Well, we're from East Tennessee. We never did know the right way. There's not as much emphasis on that, I don't think.
I don't think there is either.
I don't think you focus on it in school as much, and then everybody's got these things right here that they abbreviate and
brief, yeah,
and then do it as quickly as they can.
And a lot of times we're just talking into the phone, and it may not even come out.
Right.
Sometimes I'll look at it and say, "Well, I missed the prepositional phrase," because I remember my 64 prepositions.
You got a good memory then. I edit for authors all over the world. I do that more than I do my own writing.
Hadn't you edited for several, so many countries or something like that?
I've edited for authors from over 13 or more countries. Now their work is in English. Almost always. I did edit or format a lady's book one time in German, but I'd already edited in English, and then she wanted me to come back and format the German to match it. So that was kind of a unique experience.
How do they find you?
I've got a gig on Fiverr, Fiverr, which is a place that lets freelancers work through them, and they've got a worldwide presence. So most of the time I go through Fiverr, where they find me on there, and I've got a 5-star rating there, and then a top rating.
So you're like a freelance. You'll edit it for. You have to bid on that, or you just set your price up.
Well, I give them a sample price, but I always tell them that before I give you a price and a timeline, I have to see a copy or a sample of your work, because they can range from decent writing where there's still going to be a few errors, but it can range from one guy I worked with. He gives me a book that's basically one run-on sentence almost, and he doesn't capitalize names or beginnings of sentences, or he doesn't capitalize.
So you're writing the book for him.
Well, he's got the story there, but I have to try to figure out who's saying what, and what the paragraph is supposed to be, and all of that. So obviously, I'm going to charge him more to edit the work than I would if I got one from you that was basically a pretty good written English paper. Did one from a guy in Japan one time, and he obviously English wasn't his first language, and he wasn't proficient in it. But it took me a while to figure out what he had to say too. But I guess the one I've enjoyed the most, I do some books for a guy in Scotland, and I've done probably 20 or 25 books for him, and his are good. He's getting to where he knows the English, where to correct himself a lot. So it's not in many areas now as when I first started working with him. But I enjoy not only the editing because it's pretty straightforward, and I don't have to try to interpret anything before I edit it, and then the stories are good enough to be engaging also. So I enjoy doing those kind. But I do those, and I have edited for some people in the local area. Bill Stamps, who did a couple of books while he was alive that I helped with, and Marcia Harris. I don't know where you know Marcia or not, but she's from Bradley County, Cleveland. She doesn't live here now. She lives in Niceville area, I think, but she's written some books that I've helped her with, and just a few local people here, but mostly it's through Fiverr and out of town.
Now, what possessed you to start writing? You've not written one book. You've written 5, plus you're starting a new series.
That's correct. I've always been, as I said, when I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, so other than athletics, I spent my time reading. We didn't have 50 channels on TV. Of course, now I pay for 150 and watch about 5 of them. Yeah. That's about it.
So you read a lot growing up?
So I began reading when I was pretty young.
So just like my kids would watch TV, you would get a book out and read it?
I would read, particularly the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew mysteries. I've always liked the mysteries, which is where I've gone to with my own writing, thriller, mystery, and suspense. But I grew up reading those. And then I've always kind of wanted to try my hand at writing, and life just kept getting in the way, and I stayed so busy that I never did it. And I guess in maybe 14 of this century, I looked in the mirror and I said, "Oh man, if you're gonna do it, you better get busy." And so I started on my first one then.
What was your first step?
My first step was, and I pretty well knew where I was going as far as what genre, which is the mystery, thriller, suspense. The next step was, target audience, and it was going to be, people like me or adults that I wanted to write for, because that determines a lot of how you write a story.
So you first picked your audience, I guess.
Yeah, you need to know who you're writing for, because that determines what kind of vocabulary you use and all those kind of things, but and how complex the plot can be and all that stuff. But I did that, and then my wife and I went to Canada on vacation about 1999 or so, and we went into Nova Scotia as part of the trip, and around Lunenburg and Peggy's Cove in that area, we both just fell in love with it. We just loved that area. It was, not only scenic wise, it was beautiful, but the people were all friendly and so forth. So I had in mind if I ever wanted to write something, I wanted to do it, maybe set it there, and then.
Now that's unusual because you weren't from there, so you
No.
had to be creative on that end too, right?
Well, I visited it, right. There's a lot of research going into it, and get into that maybe a little bit later. But I got where I wanted to be, but I still really didn't know the story. And while I was at Bradley teaching, Miss Wright, who taught American history, and I taught American English,
I remember her.
American Lit, and she did the American history. We both were in the career ladder program, and we decided together that we were going to take some students up to the New England area around Boston and that area, because a lot of authors were from that area from my standpoint, Hawthorne and a lot of those people. And then that was obviously the cradle of the American history part of it. So we, about 6, 7 years or so, we took a group of students up there after school, about a 10-day trip, I guess it was. And as part of that trip, we went through Washington, D.C. on the way up to Boston one year, and we visited a statue called the Awakening. And it's this giant statue that's lying in the ground, half buried, with an arm sticking up, one arm raised to the sky like he's reaching for the sky, and it's called the Awakening, which is basically a picture that I took that's on that book right there. But so I had that in my mind about that being unique. And then I found out later that Oak Island was right there in the Lunenburg area in Canada. And Oak Island, are you familiar with that?
Skinwalker. Is that Skinwalker Ranch?
No, that's in I guess Arizona or Utah, Arizona. But it is the place where supposedly there's a buried treasure there that people have been looking for 200 years. And in fact, they've got a TV series, The Curse of Oak Island.
I've seen that. So many people have died after
Right.
they get so.
They've been looking for that. Initially, they thought that treasure was buried by pirates, Captain Kidd in particular, maybe. And when I started doing the research, I found out that right there in Oak Island, right in the Lunenburg area, there was this big, supposedly treasure that people had been looking for 200 years now. So I said, well, that's the 3 things I want in that first book that I wrote. I've got the setting, which is Lunenburg, Oak Island now area, the statue that I wanted to incorporate in it called The Awakening, and then the fact that the treasure was there. So I used those 3 things together to come up with that first synopsis or idea for my first book, and begin writing there. As I did the research, I found out that the treasure was probably 99.9% of everything I found in doing the research was that it was probably done by the pirates, left buried by pirates. Somewhere I found just an obscure note that somebody had written that said, wait a minute, maybe it's not the pirates, it may have been the Knights Templar. So that's even more significant to me. So I started my research toward that way and found out that in 1307, the Knights Templar they were at full bloom then. They had started as protection for people traveling,
And
back at that time.
supposedly they had the Holy Grail, right?
They had collected untold riches, and they had gotten so powerful and so wealthy that King Philip of France decided, I'm going to cut them off. So he said that we're going to get all of our armies together, and we're going to purge the land of that group of knights.
He slaughtered them, didn't he?
And he slaughtered what he could, he did, but they got wind that he was going to do that, and a lot of them escaped and supposedly escaped with a lot of their treasure. So I said, well, that fits right in with what I want to do then. So I had them escaping from there and going to New Scotland, which is Nova Scotia, and burying their treasure there. So that's where I came up with that. And a funny thing, that after I published the book, and I published it in right at the beginning of 2015, I guess, and I found out later that they had the series on TV, The Curse of Oak Island. So I went back and started watching it, and they never mentioned the Knights Templar until a little bit later on, way after I had published my book. But I got a 1 rating on Amazon. This lady gave me a 1 because she said I had been watching that series and gotten my idea for the Knights Templar from them, and all she had to do was look at the dates and realize that I had published that book before they ever said anything on TV about the Knights Templar.
It's almost like thinking through fiction. Almost as thinking through reality. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, because you want your stories to be,
I mean,
believable.
And that may be what actually happens after you think what would be believable.
Right. Of course, this was published 6-7 years ago.
That was the first one?
That was the first one. And
now Kent and Landers, they are in all of these, right? That's the Kent Landers series.
right, yeah, Phil Kent and his wife Cindy, and then Bill Lander. They are the major characters in all of them. Although
these
it's a
5.
series, all 5 of these books, but they're not. They're all standalone stories. They're each their own story.
Well, see, now I'm reading right now the Superstition. First thing I noticed was it's really easy to read. The letters are spaced good, and the fonts are easy to read. But you really give these characters. It's all dialogue. It's them talking, the other person talking. I mean, it's like you're really sort of become there.
Well, that's what I want it to be. Now you can get tied up too much in dialogue and not have the action, but as an author, you don't want to just give a lot of narrative without, and by that, there's a phrase called show, don't tell, okay? So you want to show what they're doing rather than just sitting here and tell you what they've done. Okay?
Like maybe a Landers and his crooked grin. You're descriptive of the person,
right?
To the point where I'm seeing his crooked grin.
Yeah,
But this is in, like they mentioned Phoenix and Arizona, and they go to meet Cindy at the airport, and they're going back out to the mountain, and
right.
So are they the same? So are they still? Is this, you say they're standalone, but
the characters are basically the same, okay, but the stories are completely different. It's like you may build 5 different projects here in the county, and they're all built by you, but they all are maybe different types of things going on. You don't have to know about this one to understand this one.
Right.
Okay. So it's
Yeah, the only reason I knew they were connected is because it says the series. It says the series.
Right.
But so I don't need to connect this to Nova Scotia.
no. That one doesn't have anything to do with
I
Nova
see.
Scotia. Okay. In a couple of them, I may just have one of the characters to mention, an earlier adventure that they had, maybe in Nova Scotia, or an earlier adventure somewhere.
But you write very descriptive, as if you're painting a picture for the person.
Well, you try to do that because you don't want it to be like a old dry, and sorry for the historians here, but you don't want it to sound like a old dry history book, where you're just saying this, and everything's bland, but you want it to be interesting enough that you become engaged with the characters and then the story itself.
In your mind, are you sitting out at the old Phil on a Saturday night with nothing else to do, and you pick up a book and you're reading an adventure story, and you want that guy that's doing that today to enjoy that like you did then?
Right, yeah, that's what I would look. Although not as many people read today, I don't think, is what they do. Of course, I've been out of school a long time, and I've got friends that probably have not read a book since they graduated from high school.
Yeah, I don't know. And if they do it through Kindle or something.
Yeah.
Are any of these on audio?
None of them are on audio. That's a pretty expensive proposition.
If you read it yourself, is it?
No, I could do that, and I've thought about doing that, but I really have never had the good enough facilities, I guess, to do that. You'd have to have a good setup as far as microphone and the good,
Audio.
be able to control the audio and all that. But I've thought about doing that, but now, just recently, there's some people that started toying with the idea of letting AI do it, or artificial intelligence, and that's gotten a lot better than what it used to be. It used to sound everything like a computer, just.
They've about solved that, hadn't they?
Yeah, they about solved that, because 15 out of the 18 calls I get a day are computers talking to me, I guess.
I get to where I'm not sure if I'm talking to a computer or not.
I'm not either. In fact, I say a lot of times, I said, Is this a computer or are you a person?
I got mad at one of them on the phone the other day, and I said, give me a computer. I thought, well, that'd be smarter than the one I'm talking to.
Right, yeah.
Used to it was give me a real person.
Right, yeah. Real person in this country,
Yeah.
not somebody in India somewhere that you can't understand.
Do you think they'd ever this would be a good TV series?
I think it would be, but now the people that do those kind of things, you've got to have contacts. It's and I don't, I know a lot of writers, and I'm not including myself in this, but I know a lot of really good writers that never get a chance to do some of those kind of things because they don't have the contacts.
They're busy and everything else.
And, living down here in East Tennessee, we don't have the big media contacts that people maybe in New York or LA or some of those kind of places may have.
It is handicap. It does handicap, no matter what you say. If we were living in a big town, then you would have somebody down the road that was into the making movies or making films or whatever.
Yeah.
But down here, it's just who published the book? Who'd you get to print it?
Amazon.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, their publishing platform at Amazon is KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, and I've used them all, and they're indie published, meaning that I'm doing it myself. I'm not going through an agent and a publishing company and all that, which you used to couldn't do, but you can now. And when I first started, I thought everybody had to do like traditional publishing, where you got an agent and you went through a
Publicist
publishing
or
company,
something.
Random House, or one
Yeah.
of their smaller imprints or whatever. But even now, from all of my research, and I'm not belittling them because they still do a good job, but they may do 6 books a year, and they may already have what type book they want, what genre, and if they decide they want to look at yours even and put it on the list, then it may be 2, 3, or 4 years down the road before they come back to that one, because they need one in that genre now. And then, people think when you publish, you get a big advance payment, like a $10,000 advance or whatever.
Yeah.
Very few people get any advance at all anymore.
That's only
The big names,
Yeah, like,
Grissom and some of those.
yeah.
They I'm sure they
to
get
pay them in advance to write a book,
Right. Yeah.
or if you're a state senator or something, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Probably
If you got
not
a big,
even them. Probably not even them.
You got a big name. A lot of these celebrities will publish a book, and probably 99 point something of them have never written the book themselves. They hire a ghostwriter or somebody to write it for them, and then they put their name on it. But their name sells it,
So how do you get off? And does it matter? Does it matter? I guess it does, because you'd want to say, well, I was a success at it, right?
Yeah, it's obviously you'd like to become a bestseller,
Yeah.
but the chances of somebody, like I said, down here in Cleveland, Tennessee, doing that are very slim. Even if you got an agent or whatever to do it, and they publish your book, before they publish it now, they look at the person and see what kind of potential I have to go out and sell and market the book myself. Used to they would do all the marketing, and they probably still do for the Grissoms and those kind of people. But for somebody, a first-time author, they would expect that first-time author to go out and do the marketing, him or herself.
It's almost an impossible task, isn't it? Nowadays?
It is, although it's the easiest time in the history to publish a book yourself, but it's probably the hardest time in the history
Because
too.
there's fewer people doing it.
Yeah.
What about the lady that did the Harry Potter? She was a nobody, right?
Right. And I think, sometimes a lot of those people got multiple rejections before they ever found somebody that said, all right, we're going to publish this book for you, and it takes, and like I said, I know a lot of good authors that have not gotten there, but it takes somebody somewhere with the right contact or the right voice to say, hey, this person is good. We're going to work with you and do this. But the chances of that person coming from an area like Cleveland, unless they know somebody big somewhere that can advocate for them, it's probably not going to happen. On Amazon, anybody can publish a book on Amazon if you go through the right situation.
Can you buy them on Amazon?
Yeah, you buy them on Amazon. You can buy them either in print or electronically, Kindle books.
So yours, you can go online and buy them now.
Yeah, you can go and buy them now. See, and that's the thing about doing them themselves, indie publishing at a place like that, if they'll go through and check for basic areas and make sure everything's the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and those kind of things. But I can post a book that I've completed and it's been edited and ready to go. I can post it on Amazon, and in 2 or 3 days it can be for sale on Amazon. Whereas if somebody were doing it through an agent and publishing them, it may take a year or 2 years or longer to do that. So Amazon is the easiest way to publish a book. But when you do, you're sitting there with no telling how many other million books that they've got
and
for
how
sale.
how would they find yours?
That's the problem.
It would have to be
Yeah.
suggestive.
Yeah.
You know, like I guess they send it to people that have bought fiction books before, I guess, and
Well, people-
run it across them.
If I'm looking to buy a book, and I buy quite a few, I still read a lot, but I'll go on Amazon and I'll look, and if it's not an author that I'm necessarily looking for, you know, I'll choose the genre, say I want it to be this, I want this, and then they'll give me a list of hundreds of books that I could go through that would match that. And the ones at the top of that list are the ones that have sold the best, obviously, you know, I guess.
I don't think it's the ones that are paid to be there. I believe it's the ones that, like I'll say, I'll buy a pair of boots, and it'll say people that bought these boots also purchased this.
Right, yeah.
And then, oh, it's a pair of socks.
Right, yeah. They, of course, they do some ratings on there too. I guess 1 through 5, with 5 being the best, and 5 stars. These all are 4.2 up through 5.
I noticed that on there. I looked it up for. I know it's 4 to 5 on all of them.
Yeah, and if you look at that 4, they round it down to 4, but I think it's a 4.2.
Right.
But which is pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, compared with big name authors, it's right there with them. Now, I don't mean to imply that my books are as good as Cussler's or some of those.
But you're getting as good a rating.
But I'm getting good ratings. I just don't have enough sales, to put me up there with
And maybe that comes after 10 years or 20 years.
It's not a quick thing. Most people that publish one book there, they say the best way to start selling that one book is to get another book right there. Because I don't know where people don't want to start a new author with that author having just one book or not. But it helps when there's more than a book for someone to look at and choose.
Boy, that's a tough business, isn't it?
It is, and that's why I'm doing so much editing for other people, because my books, although they've been well received, and ratings wise they're good, they don't sell like a Cussler or a Box or some of those.
Tom Clancy.
Yeah, they just, those people.
Well, and it makes you wonder if they just advertise it more.
That's part of it.
It's got to be something.
Yeah.
If Johnny Carson hadn't advertised the Tonight Show, people would quit watching.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah. And that's a lot of it, but advertising costs a lot of money, and in order to get it in the right places. Now, I do some advertising through online advertising, but it's not enough to really reach the number of people that it needs to do that. But
would you say you just enjoy it and it doesn't matter?
well, I enjoy it it does matter, but I enjoy it enough to keep doing it, even though I'm not a bestseller, I guess. But I guess if you're writing, you hope that there may be the right person somewhere along the line picks it up and reads it and say, hey, we need to. I've got some things that can help you or whatever. But
Wouldn't it be something if somebody called and said, hey, we want to put this on HBO series?
yeah, that'd be all right. Yeah, and I've got a few author friends or people that I'm acquainted with that have done that, but they're typically not from small markets like this area right here.
How about if you go to book signings or something, or go to the Books A Million or something?
We've done a few things through the library down here, but Books A Million out here. I've tried to work with them, and every time I get somebody that says, "Yeah, we'll carry your books, or we can set up something," they seem to get a new person in there in charge, a new director.
I think maybe they had to pay to be on their shelves nearly, like a grocery store.
I don't know that they have to pay, but it's hard for new people to work into that, particularly if they don't have some big company somewhere. That's where if you had a Random House or one of these big publishing companies, they could say, we've got this, we want this out here. But just an independent author, it's tough to get in those big.
So do you have one web page that people could go to and purchase them, or does it have to go through Amazon?
They can always contact me and purchase them through me.
Or go to Amazon and type in author?
Yeah, they can go to Amazon and type in C.K. Phillips, which is what I write under, C.K. Phillips, and they should come up. Even if they don't know the title, then they should come up there.
What's the next series?
The next series, I've started a book and I'm about 2/3 to 3/4 finished with a new series or a new book in a new series, and it's going to be a man and woman working together to solve cases, not through police departments. The fact the lady is from California and worked in the service out there and got tired of dealing with all of the junk, I guess, that comes along with that area of the country with so many illegal aliens and so forth. That she decided she wanted to leave, and she finally decided to move to Knoxville, and her name is Abby, and then her cohort, the guy, there's another guy, and they're both single, but have a little bit of romance involved with them, and
I guess you got to throw that in there nowadays.
throw it in. It's just mostly not any. The story's not about the romance at all. It's just the fact that they're together. But
a little tension, maybe.
Yeah, and so this guy is a former special ops guy that's retired and has moved to Cleveland.
Just like Kent and Landers, right?
Pretty much. Although Kent is just technically he's an author.
Yeah, he's writing, and Landers is showing him the ropes
Right.
and how things go, and
Right.
giving him some language, I guess.
Yeah, and teaching him a lot of the stuff that he can include in the books.
Yeah.
But
I thought that was interesting. It was a book about a guy that's writing a book.
yeah, the guy writes books, but he's not necessarily, although at some point he'll write a book about that story that they're involved in, because it's hopefully so interesting that it's worth writing about. But back to my other guy, the other one is, of course, Abby, and then this guy is a former Army operative that has moved to Cleveland and has bought a ranch with some horses here and retired here. And they met on the Appalachian Trail one time, and she found out that he had been a special operative, and she talked him into helping her with a case that she was involved in. She's a freelancer now. She does her own.
And there's a lot of those out there now, those freelance investigators. So
Right.
I know what you're talking about. Some of those have really solved a lot of cases.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, particularly when you get into the police have got so much to do, and something looks like it's not any foul play involved with it, and the family is convinced that there may be, and they hire somebody to really check into it. So that's kind of where this
Sort of
story
reminds me of Rockford Files. Remember Rockford
Oh, yeah,
Files?
yeah.
He was kind of a hired private investigator. Remember that at the beginning, that he'd have the answer machine beep and says, "You've reached Jim You've reached Jim Rockford.
Rockford, yeah.
Please leave a message," or something. That was a big thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it's just been a long time since I thought about that, but yeah, that's kind of what it is. And
What's your writing process? Do you go sit at the kitchen table, or you get in a room quiet, or how do you do that?
I usually sit down not much at a desk. Most of the time, just in a recliner and put my computer on me, and then I start working.
You're not writing with pen and paper. You're
actually typing on a computer. I don't know if I could read my writing anymore or not if I wrote it.
I've noticed that authors, people that write, are always interested in the other writer's process.
Right.
That's a big deal to them. They always say, "What's your process?" This one goes out of town for the weekend. This one sits in a recliner at his house, and this one goes to. So you sit in you turn the TV off. Or you have any music playing?
Most of the time it's off, but sometimes I'll put one of those channels with just music on it, real low in the background, just as a little bit of background noise there, I guess. And other than that, it's just.
Can you feel when you're in the zone?
Yeah, and that's a good question, because when you're writing a story like that, and you're talking about 85,000 words or more, or something like that in the book, you get to a point to where I call it that the characters take over the story, and it's almost like they're writing the story then instead of you, because you get into their minds, and this character's reacting to what happened here, and you just let him go with the flow, or her go with the flow there. And once you get to that point in a story, it's a lot easier to do.
So you're seeing the story. See, when I'm like here on Saturdays and I'm estimating the plans, and I can tell when I don't want to do it. But when I get in the zone, I'm literally building the house as I'm going.
Right.
And I'm doing, and I'm assuming that you can get in those zones too, where it's just okay. In other words, I'm estimating how it's going, and you're writing how it's going,
right?
And you're not even really making it go anymore. You're just
kind of getting out of the way and letting it flow.
Just putting it down. And,
right.
And boy, when you get in that zone, you know it, don't you?
Oh, sure, yeah. Now I'll typically write a real broad outline of where I want to go with the story, but not get into a lot of detail. So when I get to this point right here and the characters kind of take over, then I go with them rather than what I may even have written down.
You may
here.
even go, not even deal with
Right,
that.
yeah. And they may take me a completely different way. And once you get to that point, it's a lot more enjoyable and it's a lot easier writing that way.
Is there a formula? I've always heard that there was a formula for writing, and for even some people even go so far as to say this is even how things go in life. But you'll have the heroes. You'll see the background of the hero, then the hero's going forward, then they have a catastrophe, and then the catastrophe looks like there's no possible way it's going to come out, and then the hero is victorious. Do you go along with that, or do you?
That basically it depends on the genre you're doing, what type of story it is, and the thriller, mystery, suspense. You do that, and you're conscious of going through that. But you can't take a lot of time in the initial beginning to build up to finally something happening. You've got to almost have something happen right away,
Or you'll lose them.
or you'll lose them. Yeah. Now, back years and years ago, all of the really classic stories and all those big stories from that we used to have to study in school and all that, the authors could spend the first 100 pages describing things without really getting into something happening in a story. Can't do that anymore.
Like on Walden's Pond, I've noticed that he just goes into describing so much about the startup that he starts to lose me
Right.
by the time I get into him.
Yeah, and if you go through books now, readers don't want to spend a lot of time, and I'm the same way. I don't either. I don't want to spend a lot of time in the beginning of a book just reading description after description after description. I want to know what happens. I want to know what the problem is really quick. Somewhere real quick. There's got to be some kind of initial incident there that, oh, here's going to be the problem. Here's what we've got to solve.
Now, does that problem a lot of times have to be current issues? I mean, if you was to write a book about a cowboy that's going to rope a horse, nobody would really say, oh, well, he lost the horse. But do you have to bring it in today's thinking? Does that make sense?
It does, and you pretty well have to, because a lot of people don't read anymore to begin with. Mm-hmm. And the people that do read want to get to the problem, the story itself, really what's going on in this story, not just a lot of description and setting up of what may happen later. Now, you can do a little bit of that, but somewhere there pretty quick, something's got to happen that catches the reader's attention that, oh, here's the problem right here, or here is a problem.
Or the situation.
The situation that this character is going to face or is facing. And
does it need to be a relevant situation?
It depends on the genre. It needs to be something that a reader can identify with.
Yeah.
And not completely get them off. Now, if you get into really some types of science fiction, maybe not. But if, as far as these kind of books, there needs to be something happen right at the beginning that the reader realizes this is the problem.
Like in the Superstitions, he was being chased by foot through the water,
Right.
through the creek to lose the dogs. And I didn't even know what that was about in the beginning when I started reading it, but it did capture me. What's he doing running from these dogs?
Right. Yeah. That's you want something pretty quick, some kind of action that's going to get the reader engaged. That's here's a problem here. How's he going to get out of this, or how's she going to work through this, or what's going to happen, rather than spending page after page talking about how tall he is and what he looks like and what he does for a living and all those kind of things. Readers
Now you said
don't do that anymore.
you got into that later after you
Right.
the hook. I
And you
guess.
try to do it in stages too. You don't want to spend just a long, even later after you've got the hook there. You don't want to spend a lot of pages or time talking about the character or describing something. You want to introduce it into sections, ideally as part of what's going on there. Then the character may face something there that tells you that, he's 6 feet tall and whatever, but you don't want to spend just a lot of time describing how things look or the characters.
Just
or
pepper
whatever.
it in, I guess.
Right, pepper it in. Try to make it part of a logical reaction to what's going on or what's happening.
Was reading your escape in any way?
Probably was and probably is. Yeah. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of TV choices. I spent.
What was on TV of an evening during that era? Or what? Well, I don't know. I guess 60, 62, 63. What would have been on TV?
There wasn't much I liked. I guess, I don't know when Bonanza started and some of those kinds of shows.
Gunsmoke, was it on?
Gunsmoke may have been
So
on.
maybe black and white.
Yeah,
Andy
black
Griffith.
and white. And you go out and you might even may not even know what I'm talking about. And you go out and twist the antenna that's set out there and twist it till you get that other two or the other one channel or one of the other.
There was only, what'd you have, three?
Three, maybe two most of the time.
Mine was 3, 9, and 12, and 61 but there wasn't anything on 61.
Right, yeah.
But what was on of an evening?
You know what I did most of the evening? I'd either read or I'd listen to WLS out of Chicago, radio. I listened to a lot of radio.
Music?
Music, yeah.
So at night there it was not common to watch TV at night, like from 7 to 10.
Not for a lot of people.
Was TV just didn't come in clear and there wasn't nothing on, or what was it?
All the above. There really was very few choices, one or two, and you twist the antenna outside.
And it was the news, I guess, some of the news.
And there really wasn't anything that was, other than on Saturday morning for cartoons, that was geared toward kids, I guess.
So even though it was on, there wasn't. So reading was was that reading a big deal for a lot of people then?
Probably, it probably was. Now,
Did you get the books from the library?
Yep.
At the old library?
Yep. Mm-hmm. I probably had read every Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew stories there were at that time, and maybe
Nancy Drew, she wrote Hardy Boys. Is that right, or was that two different? Hardy Boys was separate.
Nancy Drew was a separate series written by somebody else, I guess, and it was a female star, protagonist in the story. She solved these little mysteries like the Hardy Boys did, so those were the two big ones that I grew up with.
Didn't they both get their own TV series?
They may have.
I think maybe the Hardy Boys did.
Yeah.
What'd you call them? Antagonist? Protagonist?
Protagonists. The pro meaning four are good guys. Okay, and
Like the white hats?
yeah, and the antagonists are the
Oh, I
people that
see.
oppose them.
Protagonist and
The bad guys. The protagonists were the good guys. The antagonists were the people that caused the problems, antagonized them. Okay, so there may have been things on in the afternoon, but we weren't inside in the afternoon. When we came home from school, and if I got home before dark because of practice or whatever, in the summer, I wasn't in the house. We were outside doing something.
Like what?
Playing basketball on that basketball outside court, fishing. Ray Bennett, one of my friends, we used to do a lot of basketball, and we'd go fishing all the time.
Over there at the old field?
Yeah. Now he didn't live there. He lived out on Dalton Pike just a little bit, but
Bennett Acres, I guess, is where that came from. Maybe Bennett. No, that was where Bennett Acres.
He lived. Now that's a different set of Bennetts.
Oh,
Brenda Bennett and Catherine and that group lived out there where the Bennett Acres are. Now Ray Bennett was a cousin, and they lived right there on Dalton Pike, make that curve when you go past the line.
Where would y'all
Spring
go
Place.
fishing over there?
Ray's dad, was an electrician in Bradley County, and he knew everybody and had been everywhere, and he knew where all the lakes were. And because Ray was his son, we used to know where all the little fishing lakes were in Bradley County. And then as we got older, we went out to B&B Marina out in that area, not the marina then, but out at the river there. And we'd camp out a lot of times and fish and so forth there. But we did that, and we go explore. There were a couple of caves here in Bradley County that we'd go explore. One on Hancock's Cave and one off of Highway 64. Actually, both of those were off Highway 64. And
Yeah, where is that Hancock Cave? Is that over where is there a quarry over there now?
I'm not sure. There was one of them.
Maybe York Road. No?
Yeah, that may be. And there's one right there right to the left on Highway 64 as you're going out of town up toward Ocoee.
I've heard about that my whole life, and I've never been there.
I think they've got them maybe both blocked off now, but we spent.
Was it big in there?
One of them was supposedly enough space in there, enough area that it came out in Polk County somewhere. We never went that far, but
Golly.
We did some exploring in the
Boy, that
caves.
ought to be something somebody looks into.
Yeah, but I don't know that I know they've got probably both of them blocked off
Now that would be a good story, fiction story.
Yeah, to be in the cave.
Yeah, come out in another county,
Right.
because that would be a long ways.
Yeah. And that fits in with the superstitions and so forth, and the fact that a lot of that area out there, the superstitions are in the Superstition Mountains, about 50 miles from Phoenix. And I don't want to get too far into it because you just started it.
Now,
But
50 miles from Phoenix, you're thinking of a real place like
yeah, it's a real
like
place.
Scottsdale, or where would that be? Would that be close, like between Phoenix and
I think
Tucson?
it's due. The Superstitious Mountains are due almost east, I believe, of Phoenix.
So that'd be like between. I think that's where Mike Tyson lives close to there.
It may be, but there's all kinds of caves there that supposedly folklore says that the Apaches or the Indians back years and years ago could go into one place and come out way
I've got
somewhere
that
else.
far in the book where it's
Okay.
talking about
Yeah,
that.
I don't want to get too
Yeah,
far
yeah.
into it because you've not read
Yeah.
all of that, but there's a lot of things there in Superstition Mountains that are folklore, and maybe not just folklore, maybe true too.
Is there
but,
anything that you know in the past that's been folklore but ended up being true? Because I wonder if some things, sometimes if maybe folklore is not that far off.
I'd say a lot of folklore that we've looked at over the years and heard about, I think a lot of it has been based, if it's not completely true, at least based on things that it really have happened.
Something.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a.
Do you get into any conspiracy theories?
My books are pretty much conspiracy theory operated, and I do. I think a lot of what I write is based on sometimes a conspiracy theory there, particularly those middle books. But the a lot of them are based on really something that happened and maybe exaggerated some now, but a lot of what people label as conspiracy theories probably are in reality conspiracies that the opposition has
Yeah,
labeled
yeah.
as fake.
Yeah, an actual conspiracy theory could be an actual conspiracy to create a theory. Maybe it's that far into it.
Yeah.
Now, coming up with the names, that would be a real challenge. What do you name the book?
Good. That's a good question, Dee. There.
8,300 words, and you have to decide on two.
Right. The first thing you could, and some titles come to authors before they ever write it, before they ever start writing the book. Other ones they may get halfway through it and decide that, now that I've in this far, this would be a good title. Sometimes you may get completely through with it before you decide on the title. And I've done all three of them. Okay, comes the Awakening because of the statue called the Awakening was one of my key points. I knew what I was going to call it before I ever started it. Echoes of Skeletons Past. I didn't know originally what I was going to call that one. And as I got into it, started it, then it came to me that I liked that title for what the story is. And you've not read any of that one, I don't think at all. It's set in the mountains. That's several of mine are, but it's in the Rocky Mountains, and there are caves there that have a lot of that they've discovered bones from extinct animals, dinosaurs,
Mastodons or something.
yeah. So as I got into that, I decided that's what I wanted to call that. The one that I'm writing now, and like you alluded to earlier, is talked about a new series. I'm about probably 2/3 of the way through it, and I'm not really decided what I want to call it yet. So a title can come to you at any stage. You can base the book on the title itself, which is almost what I did with Comes the Awakening, Echoes of Skeletons Past, and most of these other ones, I decided what as I got into the story, what I wanted to call them. The one I'm working on right now, I've not really decided what I want to call it yet. I've not really thought a lot about it. I'm not happy with the one I'm doing right now in the sense that I'm just doing it spurts and pieces because I'm doing so much editing that I'm not spending any time on my own writing right now. I've got.
You ever thought about giving up the editing?
Well, I would, but it it pays me better than the writing, and right now I've got a pretty good following. In fact, I've got 10 books lined up that I've got to do right now. That's
Golly.
one right after the
Won't
other.
that take a while? Like 3 or 4 months or 5?
That what I've got now will take me through the middle of January, depending on the number of words. And
So you're reading all day. You're reading their work, obviously.
I'm reading their work and making corrections as I go, and suggestions. When I edit, then obviously the author, if you were the author and you handed me something and said, check this, I would say, this would be better here.
Is this your only hobby? Is this your pastime?
It for the most part is. Now I still like to. I won't say run, but exercise some. Although the last 2 years since I got the COVID shots, my exercising has gone to pot. I ended up with AFib and ended up with asthma for the first time in my life after I took the.
You think maybe?
Well, within 2 weeks, I'd been running 3 to 5 miles a day, about 4 or 5 times a week. And within 2 weeks after taking the shot, I couldn't run a quarter of a mile. So
Are you back to going now?
I'm back to doing 3 to 4 to 5 miles, but it's not continuous running. It's
Now that could just be taking off a while and not running or something.
well, it was until I took the shot. I was continuously running and was in pretty good
so
shape.
it's not like you got COVID and blah blah blah.
No, but I took the shots and then still was trying to do stuff, and within 2 weeks, I went downhill.
Now I forgot about that. You have ran for years, hadn't you?
Yeah,
You were a track coach.
some, but not a lot at Bradley. I did some cross country at one time up there until I started coaching. We started a girls softball team, fast pitch softball. That was a first fast pitch team in Bradley County, and we started it at Bradley.
Do you think when you run like that 5 miles, I mean that is an absolute remarkable distance running. I mean it really is. I ride bicycles. I rode 48 miles Saturday.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, but with cycling you get it's probably more intense half the time, and it's probably more easier half the time. So So I'm gonna say 5 miles running is probably the equivalent to 35 miles on the bike or
Probably,
something
and
like that.
I've done both.
Did you cycle?
Yeah, we've in fact talking about Joe Adams and several of us, 3 or 4 of us, for about 5 straight years. As soon as school was out, we'd take Turner was in that. We'd take off and ride to Florida. 1 year we rode to Hilton Head.
You mean road bikes?
Road bikes,
Clipped in and everything?
Yeah.
Boy, that's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it
But
is.
didn't you have to really map it out, wouldn't you? 'Cause
Yeah,
dogs
because
and
can't
traffic.
be on interstate and all that. But
What would you ride like?
we would go about 100 miles a day.
See, I've done 100 miles in a day, and it's hard to do. You can't. I don't know how you did it the next day.
It was tough that first year anyway. But
So how long did it take to ride there?
4 days. We would get there on the 4th day. Usually,
Can you believe that,
4th or
Glenn?
5th
That
day.
is unbelievable. Well, then you didn't have as good a bikes as I've got now. I got
No, I'm sure
disc
we
brakes
didn't.
and everything else.
In fact, I've still got mine hanging on the garage, on the wall in the garage.
Do you ever miss cycling?
Yeah, and thought about doing it again some. Just haven't done it.
It's the most addictive thing it's probably one of the most addictive things I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's so addictive. How did you quit?
We just, I guess, just old age, and we rode a lot there for those 5 or 6 years, and we used that trip to Florida or 1 year to Hilton Head as an incentive to get in better shape in the spring. Although we'd run.
If you ride 100 miles in a day, somebody's going to be lagging.
We were pretty well. We pretty well
Equal?
kept up. Yeah, kept up. Got scared one time going through Atlanta. Of course, you're not on interstate, so you have to go. But and we found out Atlanta is one of the highest points around.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it is.
I wouldn't
it
have
is.
thought that. But
I
go on a
wouldn't
bicycle.
either until I.
On a bicycle, you know what
Yeah.
gets high.
But Paul Ramsey was with us on that
Paul,
trip.
yeah.
And we were going right through Atlanta, one of those old sections of Atlanta, I guess. And pow! We thought it was a rifle shot, and it may have been Paul.
Flat tire.
Tire blew.
I've had that
completely.
happen. It makes scare you to death.
Yeah, and so we got that finally changed. What we would do, there would be 4 or 5. One year there may have been 6 or 7 of us that rode bikes. John Chewy, Coach Chewy, and usually somebody else would drive a van and go, and we would ride bikes there, and then we'd come back. But what we would do on the way down there is we would all stay in a no-tell motel going there.
Because you're just sleeping.
Yeah, and then we'd get up the next morning, and whoever was in the van, John, whoever else, usually somebody else with him, would play golf somewhere in the morning, meet us, catch up with us about noontime, make sure everything was all right, and then would go ahead of us.
And book the room or
And
something.
book a room for us, and then meet us and tell us where.
Because there wasn't any cell phones then, I guess,
No.
right? But when you rode in Cleveland, where'd you ride?
A lot of places. We took trips down to Dalton. We took trips to Chattanooga. A lot of these outlying areas.
Upper River Road, Lower River Road, that sort of stuff.
Those kind of places.
So for 5 years, you pretty well cycled constantly?
Yeah, we ran a lot. In fact, we ran some marathons back then.
Aren't you maybe, Coach Turner, didn't he have bad knees?
He still does somewhat.
Wonder why
Yeah.
he got bad knees and you didn't?
I don't know. Just genetics, I guess.
Because you ran as much as he did, I guess, or close, right?
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, but we used to run a lot. A typical day would be a 5-miler, but when we were training for a marathon, we would run 20-milers, just out different areas, and sometimes we would map out where we wanted to go, and we'd go and put us out some water there off the road somewhere so we could hydrate some as we were running. But those were good times. I'd like to be able to do that again.
I got bit by a dog 3 weeks ago. Had to go
did you?
Had to go get a tetanus shot and everything. Yeah.
I carried dog spray with
Yeah.
me. And I remember once there was a dog that was chasing us, a big German Shepherd somewhere. And Joe Adams was with us riding that day. And he was behind me, and that dog was about to catch him. He said, "Shoot that thing with that." He didn't have the stuff.
Oh, yeah, you sprayed him.
And
I've been there.
I said, "You're right behind him." He said, "I don't care, spray that thing." And I got him some too, but I got the dog. But
It'll stop them.
yeah, it'll stop them.
And they won't bother the next rider.
No, they
Forever.
they pretty well
Yeah.
go. But we had good times there, and we stayed pretty well in shape. with that. But the marathons, I always consider the first 20 miles in a marathon is the first half of it, and then the last 6.2 or whatever it is the last half of the race. And
Do you think that the mind, once it's wore out, do you think the mind can make the body go on?
it's a whole lot of mental situations. Yeah.
What about when you're just out of breath? How can you get over the out of breath?
Well, you may have to just stop and walk a little until you can recover some, but
On a bike, though, you can't do that when you're trying to keep up.
no, if you're trying to keep up, you feel like you got to coast. And what we've always said was that if we were running or if we were on a bike or whatever, if somebody has to stop, we would all stop. But the bikes, we would take breaks there. One curious thing, Paul Ramsey went with us, but Paul Cretton went with us one year too, and we were somewhere down on, I don't know, 431 or somewhere down in Alabama, and we passed this women's prison, and they were all out in the yard.
They didn't know how old you were because you had your helmet on.
Right, we drove by and they were all yelling and all this kind of stuff. But we stopped somewhere, and there was a little lake there with a dock that set out in front of it. We out there swimming, and we said we're going to cool off and jump in there and swim a little. And then somebody came and got us out of there, and they said, "You don't want to be swimming there. There's some crocodiles in there."
Lord.
So we were kind of careful then where we jumped in, if we were there. But those were good times with Turner and Joe. And
Would you like riding bikes or or running better?
when I was in really good shape, I liked them both. They were different. You cover a lot more territory, obviously, on a bicycle.
A little more preparation with riding a bike. You got tires and
Right. Yeah.
helmets and stuff. Running, you can just take your gym shorts.
Yep. Pair of gym shorts on and shoes. And
So which one did you like the most?
when I was in really good shape, I probably liked the running better.
Why is that?
I don't know. It was more challenging. I felt like, but I felt better after a good run than probably I did after a good bicycle ride. And I say I felt better, and it's probably psychological. Psychologically, I felt like I'd done better or done more if I'd had a good run as opposed to riding a bicycle.
That's interesting because when I get through riding, I really feel good. If you could if you could put that in a pill,
Oh yeah, yeah,
it's unbelievable.
you're right.
So you even felt better after jogging than that, maybe?
They both were good if you did that, but I always felt probably more tired, I guess, from the running when we ran distances along than I did on the bike, because you can always coast some on the bike and
You get a little wind, more wind.
Yeah.
But what about running up? Did you run uphill, like Baker Bridge Road? Would you run up it?
Oh yeah, we went. In fact, Turner and I don't remember Joe. I guess it was with us too. I don't remember where anybody else was or not. We decided we were going to run up Chilhowie Mountain one year, and we did that. We parked at the bottom there and ran up the mountain.
I
there.
rode up it.
And took us a while going up. And it was tough. Coming back down, we probably set a record for our pace.
Coming down Chilhowie is not just the safest thing in the world either.
No.
Is it? See, on a bicycle, you're like this.
Right. Yeah. We
guy I ride with, he come down at like 63 miles an hour. I thought,
Wow,
that's just stupid.
that's
And I
fast.
go down it at 43, and we get down there at, he gets there 6 seconds before me. What's the point?
Right, yeah. That even 43 is fast
Yeah,
on a
and I'm
bicycle.
I'm exaggerating.
But that's pretty
More like
fast.
35 probably.
Yeah, but those days were good. I wish I could feel like that again, you know. But
You probably can.
no, I can't either anymore. Not with the asthma, and I've got the AFib under control now, I think. But I've still got asthma. First time in my life I had that after I had the shots there. But I still try to do something. Either walk. I usually walk and run some during. I run some. Like if I go to the Greenway, and I do that a lot, I'll park at Cook's there and go north, and it's a 2.4 miles to the end of the Greenway up there, and I'll usually walk up there, and then coming back, I'll try to run. Now I can't run it all
Like
without stopping now.
Just
but,
do some intervals or
yeah,
something.
Yeah.
Does Turner Jackson does he do much now?
He rides his bike a lot, and he still plays basketball some. And he plays pickleball, but I don't know that he does a lot of running now because of his knees, probably more than anything else. But he's still
That's one thing about cycling. It's not bad on your knees.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's a good sport. There used to be this one. We're talking about dogs chasing you. Going out Dalton Pike, there was one big German Shepherd that was out there on the right that always got after us.
Man, I tell you what, they can hit your spokes, and it's just it's a horrible thing.
Right. Do you carry some spray with you?
The guy I'm with does. I buy it
Okay.
and he sprays it.
Okay. And it'll work, you know, if you can get it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
it used to be, it's not as bad now, I don't think. Of course, I don't do as much running in neighborhoods and out in the country as I used to. But I think more people keep their dogs restrained now than what they used to.
I've been bit twice. I was against spraying them till I got bit the first time. And then you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And you're really helping them because they were out in front of a car or something.
Right, you know, you hope what you do will
Yeah.
teach them that they don't want
Yeah.
to do that again. I've gotten bit at, never did break my skin 3 times out on the Greenway from people with the dog on
Oh,
their
Lord.
leash.
Yeah.
And
That's
they say,
crazy.
Yeah, and they say it'll never bother you, don't bother you, and then next thing you know,
There's a reason why insurance companies don't want you to have dogs
yeah,
because they've seen that too many.
yeah,
Do you ever get to writing and stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning?
oh yeah, I do that pretty often. Now I still try to read a lot, and most of the time I'll read at night, right before I go to bed.
So you have to read. You have to write your stuff. You're reading to edit,
Right,
and you're
trying to read
trying
some.
to read for entertainment.
Yeah.
Is it easy to keep all the stories separate?
Usually, yeah. It's sometimes if they're now when I edit in a lot of different genres and fiction
Yeah.
and nonfiction both, but they don't overlap as much in what I'm wanting to do here. But the writing I don't usually do late at night because I'm tired and just don't feel creative,
Yeah.
I guess. But the reading then is just rather than watching TV late at night. I almost don't, unless I'm watching a ball game or one of 2 or 3 series that's on the History Channel. Mostly, I almost never turn the TV on anymore.
You ever get writer's block?
Oh yeah, yeah.
How do you get over it?
You may have to just set something aside for a few days, or just start writing and realize that what you're writing may not be what you end up with on that particular
Just
chapter or
just
whatever.
get past that,
Just get past the point of getting something on the paper.
and then come back. And,
Yeah, come back and may end up throwing away that whole thing. But usually most of the time I have an idea of where I'm going next in a story. And something unique about writing, once you get to a certain point in a story and writing it, if you've got engaging characters, which you hope they are, then they almost take over the story and do the writing. And you just write down where they want to go, basically. And that may not make sense to somebody that's not written.
no,
but,
well, it's really coming from you, but you're not consciously.
right. You're almost letting that character write it for you, in his tone, in his voice. And at that point, it becomes a lot easier to write because you're not having to say, now, what would he do next? And if you just kind of turn it over to him, basically, then he tells you what he'll do next, And sometimes it's not what you thought it was going to be.
Do you think if Shakespeare came out now with his books that they would be popular? Or was it just kind of written for the time?
It was for the time. I don't think. Well, a lot of his would still be pretty popular, but not as many people. Back then, people didn't have access to books. They just had to go and watch plays and those kinds of things. So we had almost a captive audience if people wanted.
A lot of people
wanted to
couldn't
see the
even
story.
write.
Right. They couldn't write or read, a lot of
Same
people.
way with Mark Twain, I guess.
And Mark Twain, the people that would have a problem selling today would be people like Charles Dickens and those kind of people that just spent page after page after page description and without any action in it. Then
Because people then had maybe a longer attention span, maybe.
definitely
little
longer
more
extension
patient.
and didn't have the distractions
Yeah.
that we've got now. If I don't enjoy reading this chapter, I can I can close it down, turn on the TV, or get on my computer and go to
Back
Facebook.
then, they would go sit on the porch for 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. Do that, and maybe go out and I start saying they didn't have to go out and do a lot of walking because their work kept them in shape, and they could.
Yeah.
It was just
Right,
a rest
yeah.
time for them. But there's too many distractions now from reading that if you don't enjoy a story, then you're not going to spend an hour reading a description, description after description after description. Now, so people like Charles Dickens and some of those would have a hard time selling today.
I believe so. I believe you're right. I believe even Mark Twain would.
Mark, although he had some humor, he would
do better than Shakespeare.
Yeah, he
I
would do a
think.
lot better than some of those other people would be. Yeah.
I believe you're going to be a success in this book writing, just like you have been as an athlete and as a school teacher.
Well, I appreciate that. It's you get to a point where you're writing for yourself almost, because you're not going to, unless somebody somewhere with a big name gets a book and decides, hey, I'm going to say something about this on TV or something here, then the chances of you doing well with it are not good. You do some, and I do some advertising through Facebook and through Amazon, but not a lot. It's like I said, I spend most of the time editing now, and I've got one other series started that I'm probably 2/3 of the way up on that story.
On the first book.
On the first book in that series, yeah. Bronco Slade is the guy,
Bronco Slade.
and Abby Malone is his cohort, yeah. hopefully they'll turn out to be pretty good characters.
Well, I'm enjoying this one, and I'm gonna keep reading it till I get done. And I like the paper. You know, to me that's important. I don't like the jackets. You know, the
Okay, yeah.
jackets. I don't want to annoy. I like the fact that it's together. Doc Hollywood, he's a friend of yours.
Yeah.
I had him here last week or week before. I really like him. I grew up with him.
Yeah, I saw your interview with him, and he called me and said that you were going to be.
He's a big
calling
fan
him.
of yours.
And we had a reunion out at Taylor's 3 years ago, I want to say now, and he was in charge of setting that up and did that.
He's
And,
smart, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
He is very
and I knew
smart.
Greg too.
I didn't know Greg.
His brother.
Yeah.
Probably knew him better than I did
Doc.
Doc. So say Paris, Doc.
He's Doc like your CK.
Yeah, yeah, he's a good guy, and he did a good interview with you.
He really did. People really enjoy it.
Yeah.
People will enjoy this one.
Well, I appreciate
Ken,
it.
I appreciate it, buddy.